especially a clear mandate for next 4 years, so that we can continue to strengthen our province and keep building our Canada. And thank you, Minister Lache. Every time we spoke to each other, you have a very refined thought process, and you're so hardworking that not just today. I see our future as well. Very
Recording in
strong.
progress.
So today, we're here to meet our partners. We are not here to talk. We are here to listen to them and reply to what they want to ask, because uncertainty is the only certain things right now. With those words, I am going to pass it on back to Shannon. And again, Shannon, thank you so much for, I don't know how you do this much of hard work, but I've never heard no from you. So maybe you can share that secret someday to us. Over to you.
All right, so that'll go right over to Minister Lecce.
All righty. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, colleagues. It's good to see you all. Deepak, thank you for your leadership. I mean, Deepak's in the heart of this tariff war because Mississauga has many manufacturers that can be impacted, that will be impacted because of this unjust attack. And I'm grateful to him fighting for Canada, our jobs, and our economic future. And we've approved the recording. So I want to thank Deepak Anand for his leadership, and I want to thank you all for joining us. First of all, this has been an incredible challenge for Canada. We are Team Canada, and as a collective, East and West, North and South, all Canadians of all provinces and territories are coming together to fight back against this illegal attack on Canada by the introduction of a tariff. I am proud of Premier Ford. Over the past days, we demonstrated strength, we demonstrated courage, and we stood up for ourselves. And when any of us know, when you are under attack by a bully, you need to stand strong. And that's what we did. We put a tariff, we put an energy surcharge on the table, unprecedented. Ontario's 25% energy surcharge would bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue every day, would make electricity more expensive for America, would make energy less reliable in Michigan, in New York, in Minnesota. Within less than 24 hours of that being introduced, I wrote to the independent electricity systems operator directing them to impose this 25% surcharge. Not even a day later, as we started to collect the surcharge, the Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary Lutnick, called Doug Ford, Premier Ford. Very unusual. And he called him to say, there's got to be a better way forward. And what it showed the President of the United States is that Doug Ford is strong and he will stand strong. And frankly, make clear, we're not for sale as a country, but we're also not going to be taken advantage of as an economy. And the President of the United States, these are his words, acknowledged the strength of the Premier. First time I've heard him say anything good about any Canadian politician, frankly, in a long time. Now that doesn't mean it doesn't mean it's good either. What President Trump thinks, but what it shows us all is that he responds to strength, and Doug Ford has stood up for us. And so what happened is, because the surcharge was imposed, it got the attention of the president, got the attention of the White House, got the attention of the U.S. Trade Representative, and so we are now part of a new negotiation. We've removed the surcharge for now. It's not gone. It's simply been withdrawn in this moment. We have the capacity to reimpose that surcharge in a moment's notice. I could write to the independent electricity systems operator tomorrow, asking them to reimpose it if we believe it's in our interest, if the U.S. reneges on their commitment. But Doug Ford, we were able to secure an agreement where the tariff, the 50% tariff on aluminum has been reduced to 25%, but more importantly, that we accelerate discussions to renegotiate the U.S. Mexico-Canada trade deal. And that's what we've been asking for months. There's got to be a better way than this tit for tat, this back and forth attacks on our economies. Let's focus on a better deal that protects our interests, our economy, our national security, and that fights our common adversaries abroad, and we work together here back home. I was in Texas yesterday for the past 30 hours. I met with governors from Alaska, secretaries of energy in Oklahoma. I met with the vice president of the Argentina. Everywhere I go, we have two missions as a government led by the Premier. The first is to get a better deal with the USMCA and end these tariffs, end the chaos on the markets, end the rise of inflation, and start to get back to a strong bilateral relationship that creates jobs and growth for both America and Canada. The second objective I had in Houston was to diversify our trade so that we're no longer reliant on one economy, one major customer. It is in our interest as a country to diversify trade into the Indo and Asia Pacific, into South America, and obviously more with Europe. So this has been a dynamic, busy period of time, but I will say I'm proud to be Canadian, to see all the premiers, federal, provincial governments come together. I'm proud of Doug Ford for fighting back, and this is an achievement that I think will and an off-ramp to what could have been just a back and forth rise of tariffs and escalation that would not be good for anyone. So I will maybe conclude with that. We'll take some questions. And I just want to say thank you all. Thank you, Shannon, for joining today. Literally 12 hours since I landed from Houston.
All right, thank you. Well, that will go right into questions. So first I'm going to go to Lynn with Yes, My Radio.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. Good afternoon, Minister and MPP Deepak. My question is, we know Premier Doug Ford will meet American officials tomorrow. So is the Ontario government considering impose a surcharge again, or even cutting off electricity export entirely if talks break down? And do you believe it is an effective countermeasure to U.S. tariffs? Thank you.
We are always prepared to stand up and stand ready to respond to an attack on our economy. We've proven it to you. We took $1 billion of American product off the shelves from the LCBO, the largest international alcohol purchaser on earth. We denied American companies from procurement of $30 billion of things we buy every day in the province of Ontario. And so we've acted with strength and speed. The federal government today announced another round of retaliation, nearly $30 billion of retaliation. So between the feds, the provinces, even municipalities are stepping up. This collective approach is very important. And as Deepak mentioned, the unity that we have as Canadians is our greatest strength right now. We're not going to be divided, and we're not going to stand down. To your question, everything's on the table, of course, but our hope for this meeting is that we can end the back and forth war of words, war of tariffs, because in a tariff war, everyone loses. And we can actually start focusing and channeling our attention on the renegotiation of the Canada-US trade deal. That is the best way forward to create tariff-free access. But in the letter I wrote that I publicized to the Independent Electricity Systems Operator, I'm going to read it, and I quote, "To be clear, Ontario retains the ability to reinstate a surcharge at any time. So we can impose the 25% surcharge if we believe it's in our interest. But the goal is to work more on a constructive way forward that gets a good deal that protects our economies and ends the market chaos, because President Trump is the only one to be blamed. $3 trillion with a T, trillion dollars of money has been lost from the market because of the chaos he's created. So this is not helping anyone, and that's why it's our position. Let's move forward with a negotiation that ends this madness and gets back to building an enduring economic relationship that means jobs for Americans, jobs for Canadians, and the security of our continent for another 200 years.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, great. Thank you. Next, I will go to Nitin at Prime Asia TV.
Thank you, Shannon. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Minister.
Morning.
Our leaders made statement, as you also mentioned, that we took off booze from the LCBO shelves, and how that works, that LCBO retail sells the liquor and it buys from LCBO warehouse, and LCBO warehouse buys that liquor in cash from US directly on a payment on a cash. Now, when we took off the liquor from the shelves, it's lying in the warehouses, means we are hurting our own economy here. And to the fact, is only the retaliation the path? Because we cannot fight with, the fact is we cannot fight with US. And as Premier Ford flip and flop many times that we will shut down the electricity, we cannot shut down electricity in any case to the US. Can we shut down, can we remove all the US made medicines from our pharmacies? Can we stop using the iPhones or the MacBooks? We don't think so. So is there not any, and you never mentioned in your statement that when you remove the 25% surcharge again, President Trump said we will come after, we will come with 50% of tariff to Canada. After that, we took off the charges. So why don't we go into a negotiation role? Because as earlier speaker also mentioned, what if the talk fails again? Can we really shut down the electricity for US? Thank you.
So we are ready to respond as we have demonstrated to the people of Canada. We'll fight back. We're not going to hope for the best. We're not going to pray. Our negotiation strategy is premised on good faith. If the US doesn't do what they said they would do, we will respond accordingly. We have all the options, all the levers we had a day ago remain on the table today. So yes, of course, if we need to, we will. My hope, cautiously, is that we could stop these back and forth retaliatory tariffs and get back to a trade deal focus. Because at the end of the day, we're all working towards the renegotiation of the USMCA. Once we renegotiate the trade deal is what creates tariff-free access. That's what we've had since Brian Mulroney and Ronald Reagan initiated this deal back in the late 80s. So that's the goal. But to your question, we have all the options and all the levers, all the tools in our toolkit remain available to us today. And we still have LCBO, still have procurement, still have taken a variety of steps to create pressure and pain on America. Now, to your question about the LCBO, to be clear, as I understand it, anything that is purchased, we only pay when it's sold. So we're not liable. It's not like we have American product that we already purchased once. We hold it, but they actually get paid upon sale. So we're not liable in this respect. And frankly, the largest purchaser of alcohol on earth has got the attention of many US state governors. The governor of Kentucky has come out swinging against tariffs, saying it's hurting their bourbon industry. So we're creating maximum pressure on a variety of US states, getting Republican and Democrat congressional, senator, and governors to speak up to the president saying this is hurting Americans. And thus, it's not a good tool. It's not a good economic policy with your Democratic friend, Canada. So all options on the table. We're going into Thursday with the hope of starting a pathway to renegotiate. And the hope is to de-escalate and get back on track to a negotiation so we could end these attacks that are only hurting our people, our families, and our workers.
Minister, I want to add something to it. Nitin, I just want to reword your question. We are not fighting against America. Premier keeps saying it. We have such a great relationship with US that this is probably the best relationship in the world between Canada and US. The relationship that we have is the best relation between two neighboring countries. We are not against American people. Premier is not against American people. It is about the tariff and it is about protecting our jobs. That is the only reason we are taking these steps. So we're very clear, we are not fighting against America. We are fighting against tariffs. Number two, you talked about I was in a small business. I had my own warehouse earlier before becoming an MPP. Think about a situation, you have a warehouse and you manufacturing something. So if your customer is not selling what we sold the day before yesterday, you know that whatever we produce today, they're not going to take it from us. So the pinch is very big. It's not just that we've taken those material off the shelves, which in other words means if we are not able to sell that, we're not going to bring more. And that's where we are hurting the supply chain and the manufacturing ability of those suppliers. And again, we are not against those suppliers also. What are we against is we are trying to make sure the people of Ontario has a job, their economy is working, and we're progressing with our biggest partners. And I think, as Minister said so well, I think it is not about fighting, it is about collaborating, and that is the goal. That's why As soon as we got a call from the U.S. Trade Secretary, Premier took a bold step. You use the word flip-flop. I don't call it a flip-flop. I call it a decision making. He stood up. He understood when there was a need, he put the tariff. When there was no need, he took it back because he doesn't believe in fighting. He believes in working together. So I would appreciate that the work which Premier has done, the strength he has shown is out of this world. And we truly appreciate him being a Captain Canada today. Thank you. Over to you back.
Thank you. I have a follow-up, Shannon. Minister, thank you, Deepak, for this clarification. And Minister, like, what are the demands of President Trump? And there will be no tariffs if. And here in Canada, we are not discussing that if. If is like make our border strong, stop the fentanyl, stop the drug control. We know how much problem here in Canada of the drug usage, illegal selling of drug, and a trade deficit. If there is a trade deficit, why our trade team or our the federal and provincial government not discussing about the trade deficit? And as an American, they are talking to preserve their jobs, their economy. As a Canadian, if they want a trade deficit to be balanced, so we are not discussing, but we are all the levels we are seeing retaliation, but we are not discussing about the trade deficit, which they want us to do and be strict on the drugs issue, on the crime issue, which we see what is happening in Canada. So why our ministries are not discussing if we don't want tariffs, if we fulfill those conditions? Thank you.
So first of all, President Trump has had about 40 positions on what's causing his tariffs. It started with the border, then it was military spending, then it was the trade deficit, then it was fentanyl. It's moved all over the place. So, I'm not sure one could really take him at his word. He has moved on this literally not even week by week, day by day. So you ask the question, what does he want? I'm not sure he knows what he wants. Other than maybe statehood of Canada just becoming the 51st. And we all know as Canadians will never allow that. But to your point, we have to surgically look at the vulnerabilities and fix them so that we take it off the table. So fentanyl, the Premier announced Operation Deterrence, which has been some of the most effective operations in reducing illegal migration of people, illegal drugs, and weapons at the border. It's been so effective, it's even helped to deter American guns and cocaine entering Canada, which is something we don't talk a lot about. People think it's all Canadians going south. A lot of American illegal materials are coming north too. Operation Deterrence has put hundreds of boots on the ground, technology, Black Hawk helicopters, drones, boats into the Great Lakes. We are using an all-the-above approach to protect our borders. With respect to the trade deficit, we don't have a trade deficit with America. In fact, America has a $50 billion trade surplus with us when you remove all the oil we sell them at a discount. So again, while President Trump will make a claim to $300 billion deficit, we as Canadians should be fact-checking because he makes a lot of claims, none of which are often rooted in facts. So we know, you could literally look at the numbers. We have literally almost a perfect down the middle. In Ontario, we have a balanced trade relationship. Whatever he may say, the facts speak for themselves. It's important for us to embrace the facts, not embrace the rhetoric on Twitter. And so we're going to keep reminding Americans. Yesterday I was in Texas and I met with a series of Republicans and Democrats saying balanced trade, strong economic relationship. 9 million Americans woke up today because of the Ontario relationship. We talked about how Ontario buys more cars than we sell. We talked about the fact that we purchase 400% more cars than any country on earth. We got the facts out, and then we're going to keep doing that unapologetically to every decision maker in America until they understand that Ontario is the best neighbor, democratic friend, and economic partner they can imagine. Because it's either us or they're fighting, or we're either fighting each other or we're fighting a common adversary, be it in China or Russia or other nations that do not share our values and do not share our interests. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to go to Bill Fatsis with Greca TV.
Thank you, Shannon. Congratulations, Minister, not only for your personal victory, but for your central role in the success in this election. And you, and especially the Premier, have shown such a leadership that you got the attention of our friends in the South immediately, because 400,000, I mean, a day, million a day, it grabbed the attention. Now, what I want to ask you is that, do you believe that this trip tomorrow that you're going to participate in is the beginning of the USMCA to be negotiated? Because when I see what Premier Ford said in his meeting with the Prime Minister designate this morning, that he's prepared over the coming weeks and months with Secretary Latnik and the federal partners and the rest of the premiers and negotiate a free trade deal, which is going to be fair to both. So is it the beginning of that negotiation that will take months, or we're going to be in the same game? And this is not a response from President Trump, but rather a negotiation in good faith after the olive branch that he extended.
That is the objective. It's to have a discussion about starting early the renegotiation of the Canada-US Mexico trade deal. This is supposed to start, I mean, it expires next year, and the negotiation is probably going to start anyway in the summer, fall. Premier Ford in Canada believes we should accelerate it, because if we get a deal, the trade deal is what removes tariffs on goods. So as opposed to having tariffs today, a surcharge tomorrow, another tariff the next day, back and forth, and chaos in the market caused by President Trump alone, the best practice for both economies is let's just get the deal done. And this way we could stop this chaos and get back to business, get back to working together, get back to sharing the prosperity of the continent. And that's the Premier's goal. Thank you so much, Bill.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Okay, so great. Next, I'm going to go to Khaled Salama with My Second Home TV.
Thank you, Shannon. Mr. Lecce, while yesterday's press conference in front of the White House, President Trump was marketing, of course, the Tesla for his friend. He said that the Premier called in. Can you please highlight that the Premier didn't call, he was called? This is first. And also $400,000 daily. What are you gonna do with this money?
So the secretary, President Trump's secretary, called Premier Ford. That is true. And when, as Premier Ford will say, when you get a call from your largest customer, it's usually because they have an issue, and they're usually in a negotiation coming in wanting something. So Premier Ford knew exactly what was, he anticipated this call, and he was prepared for it. And the commitment or the negotiation was, okay, we could take the surcharge off. They only started today anyway, but we're going to reserve the right to reimpose it at any time should we believe it's in our interest. And the surcharge comes off if the tariff comes down. It was at 50% down to 25%, and you agree to have a meeting this week, like in the next day or two, to start the process of renegotiation, to talk about a roadmap to end the chaos. And that's what we achieved. And as I say, Premier Ford has been very strong, and he's filling a major role in Canada. And I'm grateful for his work. This is not easy. Like, we just finished an election, and it's been nonstop. I've been there with him. It's every day. And he's up for the job. And frankly, I'm just, as I say, very proud to be a Canadian. When I was in Texas, I did not wear my Canada's Not For Sale hat, but I wore the biggest pin I could to make it known that Team Canada was present, that we were there with the Premier of Saskatchewan, Minister of Energy from Alberta, and a few others. So we had a strong presence in Texas yesterday. We flew the flag with pride.
And the $400,000 daily, what are you going to do? And in case you have to shut down the electricity from going there south, what are you going to do with the surplus?
Sure. We reserve the right to reimpose the surcharge. Should we collect those in the future, we have announced that we would reinvest every single dollar, 100% of the monies we collect would be accrued into an account, and we'd give that money back to families and businesses by reducing their energy bills. So we're going to really take the money from making energy more expensive in America so that we can make energy more affordable in Ontario. But we're not doing that because we've put that aside for now, but Khaled, if we need to, and we end up reimposing the surcharge, I'll be having another one of these discussions and we can talk in greater detail. But the goal is not surcharges and tariffs. The goal is tariff-free access for our people and our goods. So I hear you. God willing, we don't have to talk about that anymore.
Yeah, and the extra capacity of electricity in case we shut down the supplies. What are we going to do with that?
So we're well positioned. I mean, we have a variety of options. We could always reduce the amount of hydropower we use and a variety of other assets. So we have options. We are an energy powerhouse. We are an energy exporter. We send 30 times more power in the US than we receive. They're the ones that should be more concerned. They're the ones scrambling. The New York, Minnesota, and Michigan energy operators and utilities put out statements saying this is bad for our states, bad for our families. Bills are going to go up. Reliability is going to go down. Our system planner put a statement out saying we're strong, we're going to remain strong, and we're going to keep building the energy that is affordable and clean for families in this province.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next I'm going to go to Gurpreet with Y Media.
Thank you, Shannon. Good afternoon, Minister. Good afternoon, MPP Deepak as well. Minister, I wanted to ask you, so yesterday we seen the joint statement as well talking about the trade talks, and we have a meeting tomorrow in Washington as well. So I wanted to ask what led to the initiation of this? Did the Commerce Secretary, they reached out to us and then they and the Premier spoke? And what will be on the agenda for the meeting tomorrow in Washington?
The objective is to create a path to a renegotiated US Mexico-Canada trade deal. And I think what's been clear is that Team Canada has risen to the challenge. And I think what the Americans should never underestimate is the strength and the resilience of the people of Canada. And we're going to go into this meeting, Premier Ford, with the federal government together with one goal, which is to eliminate tariffs, eliminate barriers to prosperity and growth, and to stand up for our families and our workers. And that's the objective, getting a fair deal, fair trade, free trade with Canada and the US, and to ensure that millions of Canadians, millions of Americans could continue to depend on each other for the jobs that are reliant on each other's economies.
Thank you. And my first part of the question was how this was initiated. Did the Commerce Secretary reached out to us after? I know you were in the press conference when they announced for the electricity surcharge as well.
Yes.
But we are backing down now as well. So was there any communication that the Commerce Secretary, they reached out and then they had this discussion for which the time was set up? How this was initiated?
Well, first of all, the U.S. Commerce Secretary called Premier Ford, saying to him, this surcharge got the attention of the President of America, and we got to find a way out of this. And so, you said you used language. Maybe another way of saying it is they came up with a resolution that reduced a tariff that eliminated, on the American side, eliminated the Canadian electricity surcharge on our side, and got our premier. He's not prime minister. The premier of Ontario is going to meet with Donald Trump's negotiating team, including his Secretary of Commerce, as he fills the void of leadership in this country and stands up for Canada to get in the White House, in the room with every key negotiator, and saying, right now our objective is to come up with a serious pathway to a new deal that protects our families, maintains our supply chains, and also ultimately respects the integrated economies that has worked so well for generations in our countries.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Okay, now I believe this was the last question. Unless anybody else has one, they can message me, but I'm going to go to Logan at Udayan News.
Yes, Minister and MPP Anand, I am always last because I always listen to others. Minister, this ongoing dispute, we can name it a dispute, is a threat. And do you think the electricity supply is the main tool to control or shut his mouth, Trump's mouth? Do you think, do you think that he will come down that? And you know, the most of the Canadians, you know, they all fear. They create fear is created among all of us. You know, most of them, they want to know when it's going to be ended. That's my question.
Well, I very much appreciate the sentiment. I mean, look, if you are taking the President Trump is taking many positions, contrary positions in the same day, and it's not about offending Canada or every ally America has. It's about undermining confidence in the U.S. markets. Consumer confidence is down. The Nasdaq, the S&P, the market has lost $3 trillion, and so his words are having serious and negative impacts on the economy in America and the world. So my hope is that his own advisors are saying to the president, stop this madness and stop the chaos. And let's sit down with our trading partners, our closest friends and neighbor, and let's come up with a good deal that works for both economies. And that's what Premier Ford's objective is. But I'll tell you this right now. In my lifetime, in our lifetime, and I think I could speak for all of us, I have never heard a president of the United States, you know, the leader of the free world, mention a premier by name, know him, see him on American television. The only reason why we're in this position, the only reason why we've secured a meeting with the entire negotiating team, Trump's team, is because Premier Ford has been every day working the phones, been in American media, been on Fox and CNN, but speaking to the shows because we have an audience of one, not 300 million Americans, one man. As Deepak said, we respect Americans. They're good people. I often speak about my dad. He came through Ellis Island, New York. My great-grandfather came at the turn of the century to help build the Chicago Railway. I mean, we're a family. We're one big family. And this is, you know, as the premier said, it was a real attack on something that has lasted 200 years of friendship. So we can repair this. We can move forward in good faith. And I think the premier is demonstrating exceptional leadership in this crisis and secured a good outcome for us. But look, we all know Donald Trump. We know his position changes hour by hour. So we have all the tools, all the leverage, all the options we can reimpose if we want to, if they walk back on their commitments. And I assure you the premier stands ready to do that if we must.
Yeah, Mr. Shannon, I have one follow-up. So according to my observation, the federal government is not firm or strong. So does your provincial government gets the support whenever you need it on any issues? Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, we don't have, you know, a particularly functioning federal government. We're working with the government. We're working with the current federal government, but Premier Ford and the premiers of Ontario have really stepped up to be the face to our international partners, and I think that's a great testimony to the strength of Team Canada and all the premiers. Premier Ford is the chair of the Council of the Federations. He's the head of all the premiers, and he's been demonstrating leadership in this respect. And I expect them to play a critical role going forward when it comes to fighting back and standing up for Canada and our workers.
Okay, thank you. Now I do have one more question. Shazia from Radio 770. You'll need to unmute, Shazia.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shazia, you're bright and shining. We can see you and we can hear you.
All right. Minister Lecce, first of all, congratulations to all of you for. Okay, all right. Let me just go straight away. Congratulations to all of you, first of all, for winning and coming back in the government. I heard about Ontario pausing the planned US ad campaign before heading to Washington. So I was really intrigued when I read about this. So what was this ad campaign about?
Oh, so yeah, thank you for the question. As you know, Premier Ford in Ontario had immediately started after the election of the U.S. president and before started the largest ad program in Canadian history in America. That ad program helped to remind Canadians and particularly Americans of Ontario's economic relationship and the value, the strength we have, the amount of jobs that depend on Ontario alone. 9 million Americans literally depend on our province, not our country, just Ontario. Much more if you look at the national numbers. So the ad program has been effective. It's been all over social media, digital media, and of course in mainstream media. And what I can tell you is that that ad program has had a lot of impact. It's got the attention of the top leaders in America, because you were watching the Super Bowl, you saw our ads. If you were watching, the Academy Awards, you saw our ads. And so everyone is seeing our ads, and that's the point. With respect to the next phase, the Premier will announce if there's going to be another phase of ads. If there is, I'll let him make that announcement. What I can simply say to you is we now have a very strong ad program, and that's been paused. And of course, we stand ready to do anything we think is in our interest. For the last 3 months, we've had the biggest ad program ever, and it's had a lot of impact. So we reserve all the power, all the rights to do whatever we think is in our interest. And that's what I respect about the government, the Premier. We're keeping all the tools in the toolkit, taking nothing off the table.
I have a follow-up question, Minister, and the question is that, I know you have just said that you are prepared for all the tariffs and their bad effects, but for example, what is your estimate? How many jobs will be lost? Earlier, Premier Ford said that about 500,000 jobs might be lost in Ontario. If that is the statistic, already we have high inflation and cost of living, and jobs are scarce. So what is then the next plan, next step?
So the Ministry of Finance has estimated it could be several 100,000 jobs. And so have many private sector economists in Ontario alone and more across Canada. The government has said, and in our campaign, we've made clear that we've put aside $20 billion dedicated to our response plan to support people and businesses and supply chains through this challenge. We'll step up for them as we did in the pandemic. We will do literally, the Premier Doug Ford says, literally whatever it takes to keep them going, to protect our businesses and the workers who sustain our economy and our families. We know it's going to be a challenging few weeks and months for sure, but we have a plan, we have the money set aside, and we have a mandate from the people of Ontario to invest in them and to protect our economy from these foreign threats. And that's why I think it's important that Premier Ford has been reelected, because he really stands as the only political leader who has the experience to negotiate and the plan to invest. He has a track record of doing this during the last crisis our country and the world faced with the pandemic. So for anyone out there, I know it's an anxious time, but I want us to be first and foremost united as Canadians, proud to be Canadian, and assured that all governments of different parties will work together in the interests of Canada and Ontario.
All right, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
that is all the questions. With that, maybe I'll hand it over to MPP Anand if he has a few words, and then we'll close with Minister Lecce.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you to each one of you for taking your time and coming, because, when you take this information and spread it across your channels, it's not few people. It's going to thousands and thousands of people, and they're all worried right now. You know what is the biggest strength of Ontario? Our biggest strength is us. Our biggest strength is you. We have 150 nationalities speaking 202 languages right here in Ontario. And I believe the world is an open canvas today. What President Trump has told us, yes, you have to rely on your next door partner. Yes, you have to work with your best friend, but do not only rely on your best friend or your allies, which is next door. And I'm so proud to say this, Premier Ford, I was looking at this article this morning I was sharing with Minister as well, that we as Ontario are looking forward to working with the rest of the world as well. Minister himself has been traveling. He has worked, did a deal with Romania for the $360 million can-do refurbishment. He's done 40 million SMR agreement with Poland. He's done a landmark agreement with the Fermi Energia at Estonia. So these are the things. I mean, of course, we all have to pray for his health and well-being so that as he's going these places, working for Ontario, he stays healthy. But this is something which we need to do. So through you, I'll appreciate, because you have many, many listeners across the world, not just in Ontario. Take this message that we have a wonderful place, Ontario, which has so much critical minerals. We have 33 critical minerals, which the world needs today, whether it is for the EV, whether it is for your cell phones, or whether it is for nickel or cobalt. And we all have those things within ourselves. So together, let's build a better Ontario, not just with the US, but with the rest of the world. And who could do better? You know, if Salama wants to talk about in Egypt, he can take that information. It's not only people in Ontario listening to his show, it's everywhere. So let's keep working on our strength as a global village, and let's be the partner for a stronger Ontario across the world. And no better place and no better time could be under the leadership of Premier Ford. We are committed and we're dedicated. So with those words, I just want to take a moment and thank, and truthfully, from the bottom of our heart, you are our strength, because you're the voice to the world for Ontario. So let's stay close to each other. Let's stay working together, and let's build a better, stronger Ontario. Over to you, Minister.
Well, thank you. I just want to say thank you all for joining. It is a time of pride as Canadians that we stand strong and stand together. And I will conclude with that message. Unity, strength, and patriotism are the greatest advantages we have today. We are unstoppable when we are one. And I want to say thank you for coming together. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you, Shannon, for your effort in getting a good turnout today. And thank you, Deepak, for being a strong fighter for Canada. And of course, I got to say thank you to the Premier, because truly it is a crazy time to be in government, but it's a blessing to serve. And he is right now the right man for the job, and our country is better off for it. So thank you all. Have a good day. And as I always say to you, anything happens between now and the couple of days ahead, we can always come back together to do another one of these. Okay.
All
Thank you.
right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Take care.